So, GI system, you have an entire GI tract that begins oral cavity, proceeds to the oropharynx, then goes to the esophagus, okay? From esophagus to stomach, stomach to small intestine, you have three different portions, your duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, and then you have your large intestine. Also, the opening, which is the cecum, then you have your ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Okay? The lumen of this tract is lined by different types of tissue, depends on where you are. So the lumen of the tract is lined by stratified squamous epithelium from the oral cavity all the way down to the esophagus. The entire esophagus lined with the same as well, the same thing, which is stratified squamous epithelium. Okay? Okay, once we get down to the lower third of the esophagus, the entire rest of the tract is going to have four layers. The lower third of the esophagus is where we start with our 4 layers, and then that's going to continue that way with 4 layers all the way to the anus. However, the tunica mucosa, the most deepest layer, that layer that's lining, if you will, the actual tract, is covered with stratified squamous epithelium in the esophagus, right? So even though it's starting in the esophagus, okay, it's starting in the esophagus, so the tunica mucosa is lined by the actual lining of it, the actual tunica mucosa itself. The most deepest portion of it is stratified squamous epithelium, because that's what the esophagus is lined by. All right, what's actually most superficial to tunica mucosa then would actually be the tunica submucosa. All right, and then what's superficial to the tunica submucosa is the tunica muscularis. All right, and then the most superficial layer, the one that's covering the tract, if you will, that's the actual tunica adventitia. I'm calling it tunica adventitia because we're at the esophagus. All right, so above the diaphragm for this digestive tract, the actual covering of the tract. All right, the covering of the tract is covered with tunica adventitia, which is densely irregular connective tissue. Okay, things change with these layers once we go from the esophagus to the stomach. Once you go from the esophagus to the stomach, you're below the diaphragm. All right, so below the diaphragm, the next actual digestive organ is the stomach. All right, so the actual tunica mucosa is going to be different now. Before, we were saying it was stratified squamous epithelium, but now it's going to be simple columnar epithelium. Simple columnar epithelium. All right, and then we don't have to worry anymore, because at this point, all the way through the rest of the tract, from the stomach all the way to the anus, all right, that tunica mucosa, that deepest layer, is actually lined with simple columnar epithelium. All right. All right, so again, at stomach, if we're looking at stomach in layering, we still have the what? Tunica submucosa, that's superficial to the tunica mucosa. All right, then we have our tunica muscularis, and then the most superficial layer, the actual layer that's covering the entire digestive tract all the way from the stomach to the anus, is now switched its name from tunica adventitia to now serosa. It is serosa. You don't call it tunica adventitia anymore once you're below the diaphragm. So starting at the stomach, we now call that serosa. All right, serosa is exactly the same thing as visceral peritoneum, which makes sense, okay? Because we learned way back when in AMP1 that you have the entire abdominal cavity covering organs with this serous membrane called the peritoneum. And the one that covers the actual organ, the portion that covers the organs, is visceral peritoneum. So there we are. All right, so serosa is basically just visceral peritoneum. All right, so those are your layers. Let's look at what's inside the layers. Okay, so what's inside each layer, all right, for the ones we talked about, tunica mucosa, we already know. That's where you're going to have, whether it's the esophagus, stratified squamous epithelium, or your stomach and the rest of the tract, simple columnar epithelium. Right? But when we go deep to that, We always have connective tissue due to epithelial cells, right? So what you have in your tunica submucosa is going to be just that, connective tissue. Okay, areolar connective tissue, all right, that has a lot of blood vessels, nerves in it, all right, and those nerves, that's what's special here because there's this very important entangled group of nerves called the submucosal plexus, all right, that's in the submucosa, tunica submucosa. You get it? Submucosal plexus is in the tunica submucosa, all right, and you know when we address him, the tunica submucosa, or the actual submucosal plexus, it's going to be considered the control center, if you will, for what we call the enteric nervous system. So it's a very important structure. As we already know from homeostasis, the control center is a very important structure that relates to the homeostatic process. Right? So tunica submucosa has the submucosal plexus, very, very important, the control center as it relates to what we call another nervous system itself, which is called the enteric nervous system. The digestive system has its own nervous system, which is called the enteric nervous system. All right, so when we look more superficially, what's superficial to the tunica submucosa? That's going to be tunica muscularis. That's where you're going to have your muscles. Okay, so starting at the lower third of the esophagus, our tunica muscularis has these special muscles in them. Smooth muscle though. So do you have any control over it? No. No control over these muscles is smooth muscle. Right? And so the most inner one, okay, the most deepest one, if you will, would be called the circular muscle. And the one that's outer to that one, the one that's more superficial to that one, will be called the longitudinal muscle. All right? So all the way from the lower third of the esophagus to the rest to the anus, on the digestive tract, the tunica muscularis, okay, consists of those muscles. All right, and you have no control of them. They're consistently contracting based on commands that's needed from your actual control center. All right, whether it be the brain or the submucosal plexus. So what these actual muscles do is they work in coordination with each other. All right, and it's that toothpaste, the toothpaste tube that I gave you an example of in class, where you actually have the circular muscle working in concert with the longitudinal, pushing that toothpaste up to the tip. Right? And in that process, you have substances that are able to be what? Propelled. All right, so that's the process of what we call peristalsis. The actual circular and longitudinal muscles are responsible for what we call peristalsis of the actual GI tract. It's very helpful now for our substances that you have now eaten to be propelled through the rest of the tract. All right? What else helps propel food, what else helps move food, if you will, were valves. So the valves in the digestive tract as well